Where am I?
You're my guest.
Hey, welcome back to Norse Geek. If there's one thing YouTube doesn't need, it's another Star Wars video, so naturally I'm going to make a video on it. I'm not here to rehash the previous films in detail. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on this platform covering every frame of those movies. Instead, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I hope to see in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This isn't me trying to guess specific plot points or telling anybody how it should be, but it's more coming from a place of what I hope to see conclude this trilogy from an overarching level. With all the backlash that The Last Jedi came in for, my biggest issue wasn't really with the politics of it all. My issues come from what I think was a really huge missed opportunity and how that might affect what Episode 9 will be. There are four main points that I'd like to see in Episode 9.
Do you have something, a cowl or something you can put on?
Firstly, the parts of The Last Jedi with Luke, Rey, Snoke and Kylo really interested me. The problem is it was pretty much the only thing that interested me. Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley, in my eyes, definitely have chemistry. Something about Rey and Kylo works, something connects them, and their scenes are always the real highlight of the two movies in the sequel trilogy so far. I really hope that they utilise that chemistry and story in the best way possible. I don't care if it's something romantic or they're bound together in some other strange way that the Force is capable of doing that we don't know about yet. I just want to see those two characters at the forefront of the story. I want to see Rey and Kylo bouncing off of each other, whether that's as a team or fighting against each other. For me, their relationship is the strongest aspect of the sequel trilogy, so let's see it. I want to see why they're so intrinsically tied together. Give them the meatier story, let them grow and learn from each other, even if they're adversaries. Kylo's story has been great for the most part, and because of this they could make Rey's story really great and add a lot more context to why she is the way she is. Rey's biggest strength in Episode 9 could, and maybe should be, her link to Kylo Ren. Secondly, the other new characters like Finn, Poe, BB-8 and Rose need to be doing something that directly affects the strongest part of the story, which, as I said, is, in my opinion, Kylo and Rey's story. In The Last Jedi, it all sort of just fell away from each other. The Force Awakens gave me that sense of community within the film. Finn, BB-8, Rey, Han and Chewie all felt natural and bounced off of each other, and The Last Jedi was lacking that. The rest kind of felt inconsequential. Of course, that's not to say their story didn't serve the bigger picture of the universe in The Last Jedi, but because they didn't really stick the execution of those characters and their individual arcs, it ended up feeling like filler scenes to bulk out the film when it wasn't focused on Luke, Rey, Kylo and Snoke. With the two main arcs combined, Rey and Luke's journey with Kylo and Snoke, and Finn, Poe and Rose's storyline, it resulted in feeling like two completely different films set in the same universe and smashed together. It didn't feel cohesive, and that's something I hope Episode 9 fixes. Finn, BB-8, Poe and Rose all have the potential to have great stories that help facilitate the core conclusion of the story, because after all, the sequel trilogy is still primarily about the Force and all that surrounds it. The supporting characters, in want for a better way to put it, should be there to do exactly that, support and enhance the main characters. That's not to say they can't or shouldn't have their own arcs, but in my opinion it has to result in ultimately aiding the main core storyline. A good example of this is The Lord of the Rings, when the Fellowship gets broken up at the end of the first film. The Fellowship all go on their own journeys, but it's ultimately to serve the same purpose, meanwhile facing their own individual challenges as they go. Some might argue that this is what happened in The Last Jedi, because Finn and Co's storyline was at the end of the day still about rebels versus the First Order, but the execution of The Lord of the Rings' second and third installment compared to The Last Jedi is a lesson on how to do the, in air quotes, side quests.
The Ilenium system?
Yes, the Ilenium system, that's the one. Get us there as fast as you can.
I'll drop you to Panema Terminal.
Thirdly, I want to see Luke interact more with the rest of the universe. Now, I should say I don't exactly hate what they did with Luke in The Last Jedi. I get some people, including Mark Hamill, have insinuated it's not faithful to the original character, but my gripes weren't really with that. I actually think Mark Hamill gives a superb performance, especially given that he didn't really agree where Rian Johnson had taken the character. My fundamental issue with Luke going into Episode 9 is that we haven't really seen him interact with the rest of the universe or the characters. Even at the end, in the scene between Leia and Luke or the scenes with Kylo, it quite literally felt hollow given that he was a Force projection. And then he dies. Sure, he's likely to come back as a Force ghost, but again, he will feel separate to everyone else. The likelihood is he'll only really interact with Kylo and Rey, and due to Carrie Fisher's untimely passing, he isn't really going to interact with anyone else. He doesn't have a relationship at all with any of the other characters. Carrie Fisher's passing and Han Solo being killed off in episode 7 brings a natural limit to whom he interacts with. And even if he does begin to interact with the other characters, it's not going to really have the time to nurture those relationships because it's the last film. He'll have to be introduced, build a rapport, and then it'll end. It'll feel rushed at the very least, and the feel of those band of ragtag rebels that worked so well in the original trilogy won't feel authentic. As I said, I hope to see Luke more involved with more characters in the universe as a whole, but I don't know how that can happen. It's up to people a lot more talented than me to work that one out, and I hope they manage it. Sadly, I'm not optimistic on that particular aspect.
Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you. Just like your father.
Finally, Kylo Ren's Sully. Adam Driver's Kylo Ren has undoubtedly been the highlight of the new film so far. I think his acting is superb, and I think the story they've chosen for him has been solid. I'm not sure if he can be redeemed at this point, but if it's possible then I'd be okay with that, as long as it's not a rehash of Vader's redemption. Tell us more about his relationship with Snoke. I didn't necessarily, and I still don't, need a fully fleshed out backstory about Snoke, but I'd like to know a little bit more context about how he was ensnared by Snoke, why and how he was the leader of the Knights of Ren, and who they even are. I want them to show us why Kylo is the way he is, beyond feeling betrayed by Luke. Show us how Snoke, or Palpatine, who seems to be rearing his head again judging by the trailer, got Kylo to where he is, and finally why he's so important to all of this.
My worthy apprentice, son of darkness, heir apparent to Lord Vader.
So I hope you enjoyed this video on my hopes for episode 9. I know I didn't exactly have answers or theories, but rather just what I prefer the film to focus on, because love it or hate it, The Last Jedi felt like it missed the mark on a number of steps, but that doesn't mean the sequel trilogy has to go out with a whimper. Anyway, let me know what you think. You might disagree, you might agree, we've all got our own thoughts about Star Wars and the sequel trilogy, so hit up the comment sections about your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. As I said, apparently it helps the video be seen by more people according to YouTube's mysterious algorithm, so I'd really greatly appreciate that. And welcome to all the new subscribers. I don't really have a schedule at the moment because I'm a bit of an ill-disciplined chimp, but I'm working on getting more stuff out and that's worthy of being released. So it's great to have people subscribe to stick around and see what I've got to offer. Enjoy your day, night, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I'll catch you next time.